So you would be expecting that I will talk of something about finance and balance sheet and fundraising and all. No. I'll talk of something which I think is a very important lesson to get, and I can't overstress it. The three most important things in your company is people, people, people. And that is encapsulated in what we are going to talk now. Culture and leadership. Leadership is a habit. Leadership is a way of leading. It is not a positional thing. It's a part of the culture of the company. Even how a latest entrant in the company, a rookie, leads the way for making a solution for the company is also as much as a leadership as a CEO tackles a tough problem. So leadership is a quality which is part of the organizational culture, the kind of the DNA of the organization. That's the leadership we're talking of, and how you look at that different perspective. So if I look at this particular thing, the culture has mostly 6 attributes. There are many other things, but broadly we should look at it from the angle of these 6 aspects. How do we communicate? And it's all a question of protocol. Some cultures could be calling each other in the choicest of names, some may be corporate, both may be equally effective. It's always about the context in which it's being used. Some things are not befitting in a particular culture may fit perfectly into the culture. So there are no norms and qualities. The only rule is it should not be diminutive to anyone, it should be inclusive of everyone, and it should not make someone feel insulted. Sometimes if you talk very formally to someone, the person can also feel insulted because you are not including the person in. So remember that everything has to be done. It doesn't mean you have to talk in chic English. It can be talking in Bengali or Hindi, whatever works. Communication is very different from articulation. And do not go for how it is told, but what is communicated. And most people, once they get in the culture, do that part. And sometimes these are extremely personal. You may take a particular tone from someone, you may not take the tone from someone else, because you know what is the level of depth that you happen. So it's interpersonal, it's deeply one-on-one. At the same time, there is a kind of a band in which the organization has to operate. That's the first part of communication style. Now, as you can say, that comes from the attitude. The attitude of positivity, the attitude of acceptability, but most importantly, the attitude of respect. And I have a simple rule. Do not work with anyone you don't respect, because one day or the other, that will make things very unproductive. At the same time, don't be so conceited that you don't feel someone doesn't deserve respect. The true leadership quality and the true entrepreneurial skill and the true part of an entrepreneurial spirit is being able to find amazing value in anything which no one else can see, to see the special attributes. Now, that is nothing, that is nowhere more present and important than in your way you react with people, how you do it. And always results matter, no doubt. Consequent results, failures may matter, agreed. But what does matter is all the effort the person is putting in. Someone may be incapable of doing the job. Maybe you have to let the person go. Doesn't mean that you disrespect the person. But someone may be very good at their job, but may be a complete arrogant person. That's the first person you should let go. So remember, performance and attitude are not necessarily linked, and you always go with the positive attitude people, and that really affects your communication style and everything. These are all connected. Same thing, if you look at it, that also pertains to leadership style. How do you lead people? And at every level, I'm not talking about the CEO, CXO, founder only. Of course, they are the harbingers, they are the ones who are getting it. So they are like God, they are making these people come in the image of themselves or the value. But the ones who are very good are the ones who come with a complementary part of it. The best team is the one where everyone feels absolutely sure they cannot do it. They are very sure they cannot do it, but they are very sure their team can do it. They themselves versus they as a team. That is a perfect team, and that's a big leadership style. Having that knowledge of what I am good at, what I am not good at. Somewhere back in, I talked about the army and how it, you have to look out from all sides. This is where it gets exposed. How everyone takes a leadership role of leading in the particular sector he has been entrusted with. Entrusting, loyalty, faith, All these intermingle to form your leadership style. Encouragement always breeds more thing. Nothing can be more discouraging than not having trust on someone. So that balance is there. At the same time, don't be a supportive parent. I mean, it's a family joke we have, when Neeraj Chopra was throwing the javelin, there was an Egyptian who never could throw. But the coach went on saying like this. I mean, that's the worst parenting possible. Because you should be administering, you should be critical when the failure is happening, because otherwise he's making a mockery of himself. So just being supportive unnecessarily, because that's what the protocol is, as bad as being, I am like this only, I only talk like that. Both are bad. So your leadership style has to embed, it embeds the communication. What you do, sometimes for leadership, the key aspect you remember is actions matter more than words. Actions speak louder than words that they say. So what you say doesn't make any sense unless you are following it up by acting out what you are saying. And that shows what attitude you have. The lower part comes from the values, norms, and brands and symbols. The pride with which you have the symbology of the company embedded in you shows. There are two ways. HR gives a t-shirt, everyone has to wear it, it has a company brand. And people fight with HR to say, we need t-shirts which has the brand should be bigger, I want everyone to know. Where do you think the loyalty lies? Where do you think the value lies? Why do you think the value of that thing is? The pride with which people wear, the pride with which people show, they choose the colors, they choose. It's not something you do for show, it's what comes from your internal part. That's the true part we are talking about. Now yes, when someone comes in not embedded, you follow a norm, he follows everyone, some part of it may be pushed, but do not force, then it's all false. These things, the brand and the symbol, everyone is the brand, everyone is a symbol. That doesn't mean you will not have rotten apples, that doesn't mean you will have exceedingly good people. Everything is always going to have a range. But you have to build for the best case, which is how do I embody my symbology and the branding of the culture into the people. Are people putting up normal post? Very often think whatever they hear on the memes and stuff like that, or are they really embedding and making a witty turn in keeping with your culture on some popular tones? Someone saying stay hungry, stay foolish is different than one company writing stay hungry, stay foolish, jab bhi bhook lage, canteen chale jana. So that's a good culture. That is embedding and saying that, hey, I have the luxury, freedom to think, and hey, we have a canteen. See, when somebody embodies the company, they speak in a different tone. And that's the most important thing here. Norms are very important. We actually, surprisingly, are one of the most well-documented legal countries in the world. But if you go to most advanced countries, they say only 20-25% of it is written. 80% is common law. Common law is the norms that follow. You are expected not to shout in a bus. No one does it. If someone does it, people look at him crazy because that's normative. There's no law against it, but people just do it. In this regard, I'll actually give a link. We will give a link. There's a very nice part of the world which has a huge amount of humility, and they have turned out to be some of the best designers for mass market products. That whole culture was depicted in a book, and from that there is something called the laws of Jante. It's a Norwegian culture, the Scandinavian culture. Take a look at it, it's pretty interesting. The 10 laws of Jante, which is very simple. You are no better than anyone else, you don't teach us anything, which seems very upfront, and that's what they say, are you talking like a Dutch? Because you are very straightforward, but actually they have a lot of sense, and some of these are normative there. Try to write the norms for every culture of India. It's very difficult. You are going to have a multicultural thing. What are the norms you set? Do people stand up when people enter, or do people really give a warm smile? Which is better? Standing up or giving a warm smile? Real smile, not a false smile. So those are norms, and that in turn imbibes the values that are there. The best companies have a value of extreme encouragement of errors and zero tolerance for mistakes. What's the difference? The difference is if you are trying new things, if you are going out and exploring, you are bound to have errors because no one has done that before. But if you keep on not learning from the error and you obstinately or through negligence keep on doing the same mistakes, that's incorrigible, that's unacceptable. That's the basis. It's a very fair system, it's a very encouraging system. It tells the tolerance of it, and it also says that I have to accept errors because I myself did it. That sort of an inclusion is there. Whereas, and you can see the culture, in a culture which is 9 to 5 culture with a fixed productivity where you are paid by the hour, the entire thing is on no errors, no mistakes. They say it synonymously because there is very hardly any chance to do something new and to have errors. Everything is bound to be a mistake because you didn't know what you were supposed to do. You knew exactly what you had to do. Now, those are the kind of things that are not needed in the entrepreneurial setup. So, when we talk of the values and all, that's a core value because that will keep your culture value. The other part is having the humility and the tenacity to disrupt yourself. You should have the value of disrupting yourself with all due respect, just because if you don't disrupt yourself, someone else will. Might as well you yourself do that part. That's one of the core values of a startup ecosystem. Each of these is a subject, a research topic, multiple research topics, lifetime work of people. We are just getting and skipping at the surface. Tread into it with everything, but remember, what you feel is right is the true culture. Don't try to get over theoretical. Don't try to get into too much of mnemonics. Don't tell, I communicated in this style because that was, it is ineffective. Adopt it, assimilate it, and do what you feel is right, and that would be the true hallmark of a culture. Build your own culture. Get inspiration from many things, but if you make a copy of it, highly likely you will fail. Because that culture was made for a particular people on their own needs. If you are just copying it, you are more likely to fail than succeed on it or never reach the result that they are doing. Copying culture never makes a company go and become extremely fresh, new kind of a thing. Right. Then we talk of the next part. This is culture in general and all those things. I have spoken about all those things in that part, but here I am listing down what I think are the most important aspects of a startup culture. Agility and flexibility. I can't explain it really. All I can say is agility means speed, flexibility means willing to accept changes. It doesn't necessarily mean willing to accept failures, which is a huge part of it. It also means, the biggest thing about flexibility is being able to be open to new ideas and not dig yourself in a hole. Focus should not be miscommunicated or misunderstood as inflexibility. Focus is not inflexibility. Focus means you are focused on it. But logic should always win, and that's why flexibility is so very important. Innovation and risk taking. That's the purpose of a business. Innovation and risk taking. That is the ingredient of why you are a startup, why you are starting up something fresh. And the more category creator you are, the more you are moving off the path on innovation, the more risk taking you are. So, they are actually proportional to each other in many ways. But just because you are non-risk taking doesn't mean you are non-innovative. Every day you have to innovate. And remember, innovation doesn't need to be a big thing. You can just think, I am going to look at the 5 biggest problems, not the most interesting problems, but the biggest number of people facing that problem, and I am going to wipe out 5 of that list so that it never comes again. It could be for a database guy making the 5 slowest queries the fastest, which are most used. For a designer, it could be making the page which had the highest load time the lightest. Take your own challenges, innovate. Innovation is all about efficiency increase and that fun of winning the game of minds, of making people use what you are doing more or finding it more valuable than you thought they would find it. Flat hierarchies. Well, make it as flat as possible and not flatter, because sometimes you need multiple levels. You should not have a flat hierarchy when you are remote. There should be a center head. There has to be a collar to cash. There has to be ownership responsibilities. But don't put in layers of people. All who are doing is stealing someone's work, creating a culture. So, let there be no layer or no person who is not adding value. Coordinating people is not adding value. The person has to do something. I personally like team leaders who are coding for 80% of their time and leading for the remaining 20. Not someone who's only looking at people and saying, this is wrong, that is wrong, put this on check. That's not a leadership value to me. Again, the leadership style is do what I do. That I believe. Lead by example. That is a huge part of a flat hierarchy. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you should not have 7 layers, you should have only 3 layers. Your situation is there. If you are a production company, manufacturing and all, you have 3 divisions, you have to have multiple hierarchies. Everywhere there is a part. You cannot change culture outside so much. If that is the way people are used to, you have to keep those many layers. But make sure none of them are redundant layer, just for managing people. There are processes for that, rely on processes. Passion and purpose. This is probably the key. That's what makes everything up and down work better. Without passion and without thinking of a purpose, do you think you can do justice to any of these things properly? You cannot. That's the reason why, in one of the talks that I had with a person, unless you really feel that this is the way, this is what I really want to wake up to every morning, that's a passion showing. And follow your passion is too much. Just don't do it just because it's a passion about you. The purpose has to be there also. Passion without purpose can often be problematic. Purpose without passion can also be problematic. I'll give an example of purpose without passion. Your purpose is to make money. You found this golden goose and you are milking it. Golden cow and you are milking it should be the right way. But you don't have passion for it. You will last only till there's a competitor who's not passionate exists. Moment there's a passionate competitor, you're gone. Because passion is what will make you innovate. Passion is what you are feeling and adding to it. Informality and fun. Well, let's not say it's too much. Informality is mostly in the way that it doesn't mean that you come in a dirty, haggard way and make it such stinky that everyone is there. All within the norms of acceptability. Being empathetic to everyone else, building in these other aspects of, hierarchical, passion, purpose, the culture thing that we talked about attitude and all. Informality is not doing anything artificial. It doesn't mean you have to do something, take it to the extreme extent and say, I'll come to the office without brushing my teeth. That doesn't work. That's not informality. That's taking things for granted and actually squeezing and extracting and exploiting. Informality is, I feel at ease. I feel free. I can talk freely. I can express my ideas freely. Freedom is the informality that we are talking of here, not to be mistaken for I can go any way I like. Yes, any way you like, as long as it's purpose driven and not contradicting and harming anyone. You cannot harm anyone else. Fun is very important. Unless you're having fun, you will not get those sparky ideas. You extend to theory and all, you can go to only that much. Fun is that one which gives that slight offbeat way, out of the way of thinking, and that's what keeps things interesting and ends up being the biggest solutions and differentiators. If you go and do a survey and take a look at it, you will see that fun activity is what led to maximum people's maximum USP discoveries. Let me give you an example. You remember when Facebook went live? Just for the heck of it, just for the fun, they made a switch by which moment that press of button happens for the NASDAQ listing, the feed on Facebook goes to every user saying we are listed. They had no reason to do it. They could have done it some other way. They could have done one person sitting watching on TV and pressing it. They had the facility. But just for fun, they made it that it's happened and they talked about it. When they talked about it, oh, these guys are not just geeks who look at numbers and steal our personal life. They also know how to make a connection to a physical world. Perception changed. The Facebook engineer got more respected. Of course, they are now Meta, but at that time that was the case. Oh, they are not just number geeks. They also know how to do fun things. This is one story of Asimov, which is very interesting, and I must tell it as an anecdote. Two robots are discussing what is human intelligence. And like in a true robot cell, they go out to make a survey, research and survey, and they come back. Short story. The second paragraph says the second robot comes back and says that we don't know what intelligence is, but we know how to measure it in human beings. This is how? From jokes and puzzles. This is why? Only when you have an abundance of something can you waste it for nothing. That was an amazing part. But remember that fun leads to that exercising of your brain. Your brain is a muscle. Fun exercises that muscle and gives you great ideas. Never forget to have fun. I know I'm not sounding funny, but actually I was funny. Focus on results. Nothing succeeds like success. have to be result oriented, but not necessarily about missing and overdoing. Do not pat yourself on the back too much. If you succeed, long way to go. Do not berate yourself too much because you have failed, long way to go. The reason I look at focus on results is from a very different perspectives. How do I learn? What can I learn? That's what results give to me. I did this, I got this result. I did that, I got that result. What is the pattern I am seeing? How can I improve? What result can I look forward to? And if I want to achieve the result, what effort do I have to put in? That's most important. Not very different from how you looked at your exam marks or which college you should apply to. Everything onto that part. Finally, we do focus on this. Don't shy away from saying so, especially in your own business. Brutal honesty, sincerity to yourself is very, very important. Resourcefulness and lean operation. Surprise elements. Entrepreneurs do that a lot. Entrepreneurial people do it all the time. Your dad and mom do it all the time, right? Jugaad, sudden surprises. Probably they have done the most. In a very philosophical way, a startup is also like your child. Everyone there is part of that children's friend circle or a child. You are also a child of everyone else. How you surprise each other, how you take care of each other, including the company, is your resourcefulness. What does resourcefulness means? It's like, hawa se ek resource leke aaya. You just make it appear out of thin air. It's a magic. Maybe a very simple thing, but it's a magic. Lean operation. I'm going to introduce a term here, which is my favorite thing, frugality. Frugality is a right balance between miserliness and opulence. Sometimes money spoils. How many well-funded startups have gone down the drain after getting the funding? Because of dissonance, hyper-ambition, hiring a lot of people and then firing them, opt-in. How many companies have gone under because they didn't invest and take risks in the right time? Opt-in. Companies which survived were frugal. What does it mean? They spent as much as necessary, didn't go opulent, but never shied away from investing in really important things. I can tell you an example. NVIDIA, they took a call not to fire anyone at a time when every damn one was firing, and they focused them on research. Look at the results 2-3 years down the line. So a lot of these resourcefulness and lean operations and your communication style, attitude and values, these matter. Your values derive what is a lean operation for you. And the more value oriented you are, the leaner you get, the more fair you get. A lean operation always looks for collective good. And that's the beauty of these parts. That brings us to the last and the most important thing. All of these can be made opaque. But the reason an organization moves and has a great culture is because of transparency. What does transparency give? It sets the expectation matrix right. It tells the guy that if I do this, I am bound to get that, because the transparency assures that. There is no hidden element where I start suspecting, did he get the promotion because he smiled at the boss every morning and did not? That's a lack of transparency. If smiling at you is a good brownie point, be transparent about it. That I expect someone to wish me because that tells me a good attitude. Be clear about it. There is no right and wrong. Transparency is what makes it right or wrong. If you are non-transparent, if you are opaque and you expect people to read your signs, then you are being unfair. But as long as you are transparent and you tell what you are, and you give people the right to choose to do it or not, you are absolutely fine. They knew everything and came. It's their problem now. But if you hide and are non-transparent, it is your fault. Keep these in mind. Points to worry about. Challenges. Burnout. Lack of structure. Growing pains. I'll talk of the last one with a little bit of a non-conformative outlook. Burnout is very high. Sometimes it's a momentum. You have a limited amount of petrol, your engine is not so efficient, you're accelerating will burn out more than your normal mileage because you overdid it. Most cases of burnout is you get caught in the act of being shabash, kya bana hai? And then you get caught in that glamour and you forget your true purpose and you burn out because you cannot keep up that pace. So having the humility and all, I said something just before, that do not berate yourself for any failure, do not congratulate yourself for any success. The great way to avoid a burnout is to have a slightly longer term plan. No success then seems very big, because there are 1,000 ways left to fail, and no failure is too big, because there are 1,000 ways by which you can overcome and succeed. I think if you do that, burnout goes away. Burnout is when we don't understand what we are intending to do. So we are actually acting out of what you people call, and I also have started calling, FOMO, fear of missing out. Am I missing out on the adulation I can get? Am I fearing out on, impressing someone? Am I going to miss out on an undue promotion that I get because I wanted to exuberate myself? Most of the time, you go too much, you don't get the desired result, and that fatigue or the mental part is what causes most problem. It's something which is self-destructive. So be careful on that part, and trust me, if you look at these parts and if you focus on these and you are true to yourself, transparency, I think burnout is there. Lack of structure, this is bloody confusing. You don't know what the heck is happening, you don't know who the heck to talk about. You know what? There is actually a direct fallout of lack of transparency. Lack of structure comes from lack of transparency. If you take care of transparency, it has. Why I have put it as a challenge is because we get into it in the hustle and the bustle. We said we'll do it later. But remember that if you're then doing later, if you don't take care of your core values, you are going to end up in a rut of lack of structure, and that's deformative. Growing pains. This may sound contradictory, but it's more difficult to manage growth than to manage survival. Growth has many enemies because it has that pressure to keep growing, and nothing is perennial. Remember that sigmoid we drew, there are taper points, and instead of trying to flog a dead horse, innovation is the shortcut to get rid of the growing pains. We often forget that. Sometimes we get so one of my bosses, or one of the few I had in my first job, had told me a very important thing, that often in organizations we get so busy with critical things that we stop doing the important things. And when we stop doing the important things, the critical things get created, and we are in a vicious cycle of solving the critical things and not finding time for the important things. That is the biggest thing to challenge and sort out among growing pain. How do you make sure that despite the growth, you don't end up doing critical things? One of the best ways is to relinquish control. Take the pain of training someone before the real growth hits. The impatience that really leads to growing pains I have seen, and this is from personal experience over the years, is we always feel that this new person, he will take 2 hours to do this, I can do it in 5 minutes, let me do it. But when that one job which took 5 minutes becomes 200 job and you have not trained anyone, you also can't do it. So yes, it's an investment you need to do to make sure that you are able to handle growing pains on that point. So it's like this, your bones will tear off. You are dancing and dancing and dancing without taking proper nutrition. You are actually making sure that it's a faster decay, and a back pain or an ankle pain or something is happening faster. That's the reason they say always warm up before you get into a match. When you warm up properly and all, the growing pains go away. That's what it is. Some growing pains are good, by the way, like when you shot up from when you are 13 to 21, even now some of you are growing up, but you will stop. Those are healthy ones. They create pangs and all. But what really matters is you are not really growing, but you are getting the pain of it. Because you are getting the pain, you are not growing. It's a vicious cycle that you have to get rid of. Thank you so much. This was an important session. We'll be back with a little more on leadership, but for now, this is it. Thank you so much.